I want to make this point perfectly clear. I'm not going to hate the league. I don't hate the league, but yeah, I'll hate the way they're treating the league.
Pokemon! 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 Pokemon!
Hello everyone, I'm Dustin Benzel, and welcome to another Pokemon XY&Z anime discussion. This is my thoughts on the league, pre-league thoughts of what's going on with the league. Now, I said in my earlier video in regards to this, I was going to have clips showing, of something that I've already made or whatever, but it was at a time where I felt like I was really biased and really heated, and I've given time to think. I've allowed time to pass. I was waiting for episodes to come out, but I had another video to make. So finally, here and now, I can actually make this particular video. So as I've said, I'm not happy with the league the way it's happening. But don't get me wrong, I'm sure the battles will look amazing and the aesthetics of the Pokemon League will be amazing. It's not all negatives here, but there's one major point that I want to address in this particular video. But before I do, let's go over the new titles that were revealed recently. I'm not going to go into the summaries and anything in relation to the episodes in general, because I'm going to wait for my reviews and other information in regards to the anime later. This is just my thoughts overall of the way that the league is portrayed and a little bit of the speculation that I have. So, of course, starting with July 21st, we have Pokemon XY&Z Episode 34, Semi-Final Full Battle, Ash vs. Sawyer. And, of course, Pokemon XY&Z Episode 35, airing on July 28th, Fierce Rival Battle, Ash Greninja versus Mega Sceptile. So while the league will look amazing, because if you've seen any of the trailers in regards to the league, it's something to look forward to. At least in regards to the simple concept of it being a battle style tournament of some sort in Pokemon, it looks amazing. But that's not my issue. My issue, as I've said in that previous video that you've seen where I cut up a lot of my thoughts in regards to the league, because I wanted to cut a lot of that out because it's making my video too long and I wanted to take out most of it, and I wanted to wait until the titles were revealed, in case I'm just being over paranoid. But as it turned out, I wasn't quite being over paranoid as I was hoping to be. So my issue with the Kalos League is that it's being treated like a very specific battle tournament rather than the Kalos League, and it seems to be nothing but Sawyer and Alon battle tournament. It shouldn't have just been about Sawyer and Alon. It should have been about Ash. Now, again, don't get me wrong. I'm not against Alon versus Trevor, and ultimately, when it comes down to it, I'm not against Sawyer versus Tierno, even though I had huge problems when it first came out, because it meant that Ash would neither battle Trevor nor Tierno, but otherwise, I'm fine with it. What I am against is all of this focus in regards to Sawyer and Alon, and very little focus on Ash. Now, I'm sure people will come up with questions or thoughts or statements or whatever, such as, we don't know how the episodes will go. That's not really the point at all. It doesn't really matter what the episodes have. It matters what's the focus in that particular episode, and I will address why I feel that way in just a moment. And another point is, Ash will be getting focused, but the problem with that is that Ash is only getting focused in regards to Alon and Sawyer, and that is my issue. And I say here, and not saying that I'm not saying this in a really negative way, but just in regards to Ash focus, I don't care about what content the Mega Charizard X and Mega Charizard Y episode contains. I don't care what content the Sawyer versus Tierno episode contains, nor do I care about the Ash versus episode contains. And this is important, and I'll explain why. I don't care about the content because of a time limit. Episodes are not 40 minutes long. They are the typical anime, cartoon, sitcom length of whatever of about 22, 23 minutes, sometimes 24 maybe, but roughly with 30 minutes of commercials. And while some episodes did feel very long, other episodes felt extremely short and rushed. And so, from my experience, from what I've seen, and even though I could be completely wrong in regards to my perspective on this, it seems like episodes dealing with a single topic tend to feel longer than episodes where a lot is happening. I also want to apologize if you're hearing firecrackers and dogs barking outside. It's because July 4th is coming out relatively soon. Of course, I can't really stop the dogs barking, so I apologize for that. So, for example, for this time limit that I'm talking about, Ash versus Alon the first time, when it was Ash versus Alon, Sawyer versus Ash, dealing with Ash Greninja and everything or whatever, that felt pretty rushed. It really did feel like two episodes spliced together in one episode. Not to mention all the Team Flare stuff that was going on at the time. An episode that I've said when it happened should have been two episodes. It should have been Ash versus Sawyer, could have been dealing with that, and then it could have been leading into Ash versus Alon. They should have been two episodes. But the second time they battled felt like slightly better time management. Maybe it didn't feel quite as much longer, but I do think that they just managed to put a little bit more content in regards to Ash versus Alon in that. So I feel like when it's dealing with a single topic and it's not episodes spliced together, the episode feels a lot longer. The reason why I don't care as much is in no way do I believe that Ash will get proper focus in these episodes reasonably. Just look at Ash versus Nando. That episode feels missing and incomplete because of Team Rocket focus and everything in relation to that detracting from Ash's battle with Nando. Granted, it only really affected Quilava versus Armaldo, but it was a battle that we should have been able to see. I mean, just the previous episode before, Cyndaquil evolved into Quilava and learned Eruption. Not only did we not see Quilava using Eruption to begin with in that particular episode, on top of that, it was the least quality of that particular episode. I'm not saying that the end result should have changed, but we definitely should have gotten focus from from a Pokemon that just evolved in the previous episode. Staraptor versus Roserade was okay. Armaldo versus Staraptor was definitely okay. And Heracross and Cricketune were the MVPs of that particular matchup. But why did Quilava just get so little screen time in that episode? Maybe because it did get so much focus in the previous episode. But I still think Quilava should have been a little bit better. And my point is, when we compare this to Ash versus Conway, that episode felt more complete. It felt like the episode was about Ash's battle, even despite the Team Rocket focus in that episode. And of course, the battle felt longer and it felt complete, even though Donphan got a little screwed over. Don't know why it only used Roll Out, but it still felt like a more complete episode than Ash versus Nando. And why was that the case? Because Team Rocket weren't as much focused in the Ash versus Nando battle. So there's only so much they can do within a single episode. So it's not really that it doesn't matter if they were to able to splice 2 episodes or 3 episodes of content in a single episode, and that's why I'm annoyed. Any of the Ash focus, any of the important Ash focus, should have been an episode by itself. Look. I mean, I don't know how many trainers are going to be, how many battles are going to take, But if in the next episode, when it's Sawyer versus Tierno, you know, Ash should have had his own quarterfinal match. This could have been the episode where Ash battled in maybe the battle before the quarterfinals, and then the episode by itself should have been the quarterfinals. And that's why I'm very annoyed about this, because all the focus seems to just be about Sawyer and Alon, and I feel like that makes no sense in regards to the Kalos League. And of course, I will address a little bit more in regards to that. But I will give some leeway here. It's entirely possible that I have no idea what I'm talking about, and most of the episode we know will focus on titles, or the episode will focus on Ash. Titles be ignored. But can we really argue that matters? Can we argue that's the case? Because look at the first episode. We've gotten previews. We roughly know what's going to happen. We know the first matches of the Kalos League are going to be 3 versus 3. Let's exactly look what is happening in the first episode of the Kalos League. Introductions to the league. Trevor versus Alon. Ash versus Furfu Trainer, wasting Ash's time, and then Ash versus Altaria Trainer. There is no way in any sense of the word you can say that Ash is going to get reasonably decent focus. It already appears, based on what I've seen in regards to the previews for the Kalos League of the second and third previews or whatever, it seems like Ash Greninja is going to be sent out first. And to me, that means that Ash is going to sweep the Altaria Trainer with just Ash Greninja, and that'll definitely bring up another point that I will bring up later. But, it's like, well, of course you're using Ash Greninja to sweep this Altaria Trainer. You wasted other time. You wasted time on Ash battling against a Furfu Trainer and stuff, and everything like that. Trevor versus Alon. It's really annoying that it's looking this way. And it doesn't make any sense for Ash to get any focus. I mean, look at the first league, the Indigo League. Look at the battle with Ash versus Richie. Most of that episode dealt with Team Rocket, and then when Ash returned to the league, we got a sorry excuse for a battle at that time, and it was completely rushed. Ash didn't even command any of his Pokemon to use attacks, and the battles were over before they even started because of some inexcusable reasons, even though it was the first generation. Is that really, as a fan, we deserve for the conclusion for the first league? Don't you think that, given that Ash battled Mandy in such a cool way, and the Arcanine and Cloistered Trainer and the Nidorina Trainer, don't you think we deserved a proper conclusion? And a lot of people are like, Ash lost the Kanto League because of Charizard. Charizard was the reason Ash got disqualified and or whatever he ended. I still blame Team Rocket for Ash's loss in the Kanto region. And it makes sense. If you've seen the episodes, Ash specifically says Pidgeotto and Bulbasaur are too tired to battle because of their dealings with Team Rocket. Bulbasaur battled Team Rocket's Pokemon. Pidgeotto had to fly the Meowth balloon all the way to the Indigo League. Ash almost got disqualified, all because of Team Rocket. Charizard disobeying and being a disobedient Pokemon is rather irrelevant in regards to how that battle happened, because Ash only used Charizard because of Team Rocket's interference, which is my issue. But of course, I guess Ash did have Charizard, and it would have made sense to use Charizard even if it was disobedient. But even so, it was. I don't like when the focus is other people, especially when there's not a lot of sole focus on that individual. In regards to that, and it's the same here. I can't care about the focus that Ash will get because they're putting too much importance on Sawyer and Alon. Sure, they can get minimal roles in their specific focus episode, but even if they do, they're still cutting focus from Ash and his battles. Just like how Paul versus Barry detracted from Ash battling that Grumpig girl in the Sinnoh League. Just like how Axu getting lost detracted from Ash properly battling that Darumaka trainer with Scraggy. Maybe Scraggy took out two Pokemon. Maybe the Pokemon that got losses in the future or in the league in general in the Unova region, maybe they got wins there. But of course, we didn't see that because we had to deal with Axew being lost. So, regardless of how you want to look at it, Ash will be losing focus in some way. Focus that he deserved. Ash deserved a versus Conway in the Kalos League. And he's pretty much gotten it in every single league. You know, he got it with the Kanto League with Mandy, where it was just about him and Mandy, a little bit about Gary, but it still felt like an overall battle, maybe not the best, versus Jackson and Macy, I believe, in the Johto League qualifies, and then of course you had these epic full battles against Harrison and Gary or whatever. Third generation, he had pretty much Katie, and that was even a full battle and everything, but he also had like those double battles and that single battle that he had, and then fourth generation was Conway, and of course in fifth generation he had Stefan, or not, it's Stefan! He had that kind of battle with Stefan where it was just Ash versus Stefan. And we're not getting this in the Kalos League. Instead, we're having Ash fighting Focus with Alon and Sawyer, and then the episodes that will primarily focus on Ash will also contain Sawyer and Alon. The first episode is Trevor versus Alon. Second episode is Sawyer versus Tierno. Third episode is Ash versus Sawyer. It's really a horrible issue. Ash's quarterfinal battle should have been his own episode and should not have tried to fight the Focus in an episode dealing with his rivals. Even if his quarterfinals is a full battle, and let's say that it starts at the latter half of Sawyer versus Tierno and goes into the first half of Ash versus Sawyer, and it was a full battle for the quarterfinals, it still should have been its own episode. The only thing that we can hope is that Sawyer versus Tierno will be completely rushed, but based on the summary for that episode and how they're fighting tooth and nail to get their place in the semifinals, I don't see that as a possibility. Granted, summaries have come at a weird place or whatever, but it still really doesn't make any sense to me. It still should have been its own episode for Ash in his quarterfinals. And all of this is even worse by the fact that it's likely that Ash will be in the finals battling against Alon, and he may very well win the entirety of this league. And this is how Ash wins. This is how Ash wins a league, by focusing solely on two rival characters. And it's supposed to be about Ash, and he somehow wins when it's just about Sawyer and Alon. Instead of finishing off his journey through the Kalos region for nearly 3 years of collecting badges, like around 2 years and 8 months or whatever, from the time that he started the badge quest, from the start of the Kalos League, you decide to focus on the rivals only, and rivals in regards to characters that weren't even developed properly. And I'll say this again, I'm not saying they couldn't get focused, and I would be perfectly fine with it. I would have been fine with Alon and Sawyer getting their episode titles if we had a title, an episode that was like Ash versus Conway, Ash versus Stefan, and all the other episodes where the episode only focused on Ash battling someone special. Granted, Conway and Stefan could be seen as rivals, but they're lesser rivals than rivals like Sawyer Alon, Paul, and stuff of that nature. So it was like we needed a secondary rival type battle of Ash only having battles. I mean, the first trainer he's battling is some random nobody trainer with an Altaria. Sure, I guess that person has a decent looking design. He definitely has a guitar or whatever. He seems like he has an interesting backstory, and if the theories are accurate that he's working with the Furfu trainer to disqualify his opponents because he's otherwise not a strong trainer, well, I'm sure that's interesting, but it's not like it's its own episode. It's like it's just splicing too many episodes at once. And even if we can argue that I'm just overreacting, I'm just being over paranoid, I wanted to get into the other reason why I'm not happy about this and why I wanted Ash to have his own episode like Conway, like Katie, preferably like Katie, because that was a full battle, and Katie was just some random trainer that Ash battled. That was the most amazing battle in the Hoenn League. I'm sorry, hands down, Katie was my favorite battle in the entirety of the Hoenn League, because it was with some random girl, and we rarely ever get to see Ash battling against strong female characters unless they're the champion. So it was really nice to see a full battle with this random female trainer, you know. But another reason why I wanted Ash to have his own episode and extend the league by one extra episode was because of his Pokemon. And I can already tell you, there's going to be someone screwed because of Greninja, most likely, based on what I said earlier in this particular video, and I will touch up again, and likely because of Pikachu, because Pikachu is Ash's starter, and probably because of Goodra or whatever Pokemon Ash will have as a sixth member on his team, even though that doesn't really matter all that much because Ash is only going to apparently have 2 full battles, so Goodra or whatever Pokemon it is only going to have an effect on Sawyer and Alon, but I feel like otherwise it's going to be screwed over. And the reason why I have a problem with this is I've already addressed, if the trailers are accurate, Ash is sending out Ash Greninja first against the Altaria trainer. And based on what we know about Ash Greninja, based on what they've said in all the summaries in regards to the league, Ash Greninja is unstoppable and unbeatable. And the magazine, Pokemon Fan, and the summaries are like, will Ash Greninja ever be defeated? So it's hard to believe that whatever Pokemon this Altaria trainer has, whether it's a Mega Evolution or not, I don't think it'll ever be enough to defeat Ash Greninja so that Ash could use other Pokemon. So I'm afraid that Ash Greninja is going to sweep the Altaria trainer. That means less battles for Ash's other Pokemon. Now, I'm not saying that Noivern and Talonflame and Hawlucha won't get their respective wins, but my issue is whether or not those wins will be respectable and whether or not those wins will be impressive and enjoyable, or are they just getting sort of like quick wins, quick beats or whatever, just, to say, hey, look, they got a win or whatever. It's hard to say, and then, of course, the issue even comes more is that what are the biggest battles coming up? And that's against Sawyer and Alon. And those trainers are more than likely going to require Goodra, potentially, or some other Pokemon, Greninja and Pikachu, to take out 2 or 3 Pokemon on their team. Look at the battle with Ash versus Cameron, even though we don't talk about that battle. Only Pignite and Pikachu got wins, and Ash only defeated 4 of Cameron's Pokemon, and he only brought 5 Pokemon in the battle, making the loss against Cameron even worse. And it's like, is that what we can expect in regards to league battles? only one or two Pokemon getting wins while everyone gets one-shotted. The reason why the Unova League, I feel like, was so hated is because each of the Pokemon only battled once, except Pikachu. Pikachu was the only exception because it battled against Trip and it battled against Cameron. Of course, it beat Superior, and then it went off to beat Swanna and Samurai, and it's like very ridiculous, So, no, I really don't have any faith in the writers that they'll give Hawlucha, Noivern, and Talonflame decent wins on their own merit. And if they do get wins, like I said, I don't think it's going to be impressive. I think it'll be like Scraggy defeating a Daramaka, and something instead of something more impressive, like even a Simiapore or whatever, or even a Liepard or something of that nature. Granted, the Unova League was just full of 5th generation Pokemon, so maybe it's not. Maybe even Darmanitan would have been more impressive than Darumaka, and it would have showed Scraggy's strength. But when Scraggy is beating something like a Darumaka, it's like, what doesn't really matter? So I'm really hoping, that I'm being over paranoid, but I just don't have faith in the writers in regards to each of the Ash's Pokemon getting fair wins they deserve, especially when you have Pokemon like Ash Greninja, Pikachu, and especially Ash using hypothetically Goodra. Noivern, Talonflame, and Hawlucha just don't measure up to those 3 Pokemon, as harsh as that is to say, because Talonflame and Hawlucha have been on the team more than Goodra, but Goodra is a Pokemon in the games that has a 600 base stat total, which is typically the norm for basic legendaries that you find in the games, and even some mythical Pokemon like Darkrai. I just don't want a Donphan, Swellow, Torkoal in the Sinnoh League or Boldore, Leavanny for these Pokemon. At the very least, they won't be Torterra, because Torterra in its stage didn't get any wins whatsoever, which is another reason why I'm annoyed versus Paul versus Barry, and why Ash used Snorlax against Grumpig, because even if Torterra beating a Grumpig wouldn't be impressive, at least Torterra would have gotten a win. Because when you look at it, Torterra was the only Sinnoh Pokemon in the entire league that did not get a win. Infernape knocked out a whole bunch of Pokemon. Pikachu even got a couple of Pokemon here and there, I think. At least it knocked out Frostlass. Staraptor defeated Nando's Roserade. Gibble got 2 Pokemon off of Conway. Weasel got to defeat a Gastrodon. Gliscor got to beat a Drapion. What did Torterra get? Absolutely nothing. And that's kind of what I don't want in regards to the Pokemon. Granted, like I said, Torterra didn't get any wins whatsoever, so at least Noivern, who has beaten a Doublade in battle, Talonflame, who has beaten an Avalugg, and Hawlucha, which beat an Abomasnow recently, they at least have wins under their belt, so they won't be completely like Torterra, but they could be like Boldore and Swellow, Leavanny. Maybe I'll be okay with the Leavanny type battle, because Leavanny versus Sock was amazing despite Leavanny's loss, but I'm almost expecting a Boldore, Oshawott, Snivy, Unfezant just to hype up Ash Greninja, Pikachu, and whatever Pokemon Ash's 6th member is going to be. So, maybe Talonflame can take out Sawyer's Aegislash, and that'll probably be impressive. More impressive than if Talonflame were to take out Sawyer's Slurpuff or whatever. But, I just don't have a lot of faith. So, let's get all of my negative thoughts out, and let's look at the positives in regards to the Pokemon League. So let's just maybe have a little bit of optimism, a little bit, maybe I'm just being crazy here and I'm just being over paranoid, but let's talk about the positives of the league here. And one thing I will say right now, and something that I will at least enjoy more so than probably most other leagues, is I will enjoy the battles themselves. I might not enjoy who wins, who loses, who's a fall guy or whatever, but I'm sure that the battles in of themselves will be amazing. And another positive is just simply Ash Greninja. Despite my fear that Ash Greninja is going to sweep, I don't necessarily think that's a problem, except for the way that they wouldn't make that up with Ash's Pokemon getting other battles and stuff. But Ash Greninja is just too impressive, just too darn impressive, too likable for me as an Ash fan to completely say that I don't like Ash Greninja. Ash Greninja is an amazing Pokemon. It looks amazing, and I'm sure its battles will be amazing. So even though Ash Greninja may sweep the Altaria trainer, I can't entirely say that I hate Greninja, and I can't, because Greninja is the most impressive Pokemon that Ash has ever had. I'm not saying it's my all-time favorite, but for what it is, it's a really cool Pokemon. And that's even ignoring that Ash Greninja will be getting a cool power-up sort of thing in the future as well. There was a trailer, well, not so much trailer, but a XY&Z themed uh, video. I don't know if you want to call it music video, because the official Pokemon website uploaded this or whatever, but it was using the XY&Z anime opening theme Japan, and it was showcasing Ash is Froakies journey into becoming Ash Greninja. And in the scenes, we saw a couple of scenes that we haven't seen because they're for the league. And one thing, and I don't know if I'll get an image of it, but what we see is Ash. Well, I don't think I'll show you in this particular video, but I'll definitely address that if it shows up in the trailer later on when we get to that particular moment. But what we saw was Ash Greninja with this giant disc water shuriken that's completely orange coloring, and we're like, where is this coming from? And on top of that, Ash Greninja's red face or whatever was glowing red. Does Ash Greninja possess a unique ability that we can only get in Pokemon Sun and Moon? Does Ash Greninja possess an ability that allows it to change its particular moves to a specific type depending on the circumstances, Maybe we can actually get an ability that changes types, like to balance this out, maybe, because it might otherwise be too powerful. Like if you're in a pinch, your moves become super effective against the opponent regardless of what type they are. All of your moves become super effective when you're like low health. I think that would be a pretty cool ability to have in Pokemon, is when you're like low health, all of your moves become super effective against your opponent. And I feel like that would be really cool for Ash Greninja to have, and something that Synchro Evolution type Pokemon would have. So yeah, I feel like it could be a hint to the games and in Greninja's ability. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see or whatever. We still don't have any explanation of what Ash Greninja is. Could the June 1st information that we're getting in regards to Pokemon Sun and Moon share a game aspect in relation to Ash Greninja? Giving us that information of what exactly Ash Greninja is before the league completely concludes. So that way maybe some of the aspects in the league don't feel like anime only nonsense that I'm sure some people will argue. But and then of course, like I said, the battles will look amazing. I'm sure, despite the fact that I'm not entirely happy, Ash versus Sawyer and Ash versus Alon will probably look beautiful, not look bad. They'll look beautiful, and I'm sure we have a lot to look forward to. We even have a lot to look forward for Ash versus Alon, because we're potentially going to see Alon's other Pokemon. We know he has a Metagross. Metagross was revealed in a magazine. Maybe, I think it was Koro Ichiban. I think we recently found out that Alon's Metang evolved into Metagross. And of course he has Mega Charizard. What are Alon's 4 other Pokemon that he would use against Ash? It'll be amazing to see that, and hopefully we'll see a trailer come that, and then maybe we'll see these really cool Pokemon. I don't know. I've thought about this, and I have no idea what Alon's other Pokemon could be. They could be Pokemon that could Mega Evolve, like Metagross and Charizard, but I'm not sure. They could just be randomly powerful Pokemon like Dragonite, or well, I wouldn't want Alon to have Dragonite, but or like Hydreigon or something. One of those pseudo legendaries that don't have a Mega Evolution or something. Or maybe just other powerful Pokemon. It's hard to say, and I'm sure hoping that sooner or later we'll get that information. So outside of that, right now I can't think of any other positives there's going to be, because it would depend entirely on the episodes actually airing. Only then would I be able to pick up more negatives and more positives about the Kalos League. So that's pretty much all I really feel about the league in regards to this pre-thoughts episode. Maybe I am just being over paranoid, but anytime that I try and get hyped up for something, I'm always seemingly let down, and it's like just better to just not be optimistic in cases like this. But, I want to be wrong. I want there to be proper wins for Noivern, Talonflame, and Halucha or whatever. So, you know, if I can't get a full battle with Ash against Astrid or Remo or against some other random trainer, I at least want them to get wins, and I don't want them to just be non-existent Pokemon in favor of Ash, Greninja, Pikachu, and whatever sixth Pokemon Ash is going to use in the full battles. So any further speculation you're asking? I don't know if Ash is going to win or not. I personally do not think it makes any sense for Ash to win, given that we don't have the proper time for an Elite Four and Champion Challenge, nor do we have any time to properly conclude Ash. I've already said this before in some of my other videos. We just don't have the time in regards to the finishing off Ash or whatever. And with Sun and Moon being so close by, I feel like it would just make sense to just have a storyline where Ash just gets shoved into the 7th generation anime, because it doesn't seem like there's enough time to properly conclude. But I don't know. If he doesn't win the league, I feel like there's too many inconsistencies in regards to why they wouldn't want Ash to win. I mean, we have Ash Greninja presumably using a very powerful water shuriken orange coloring against Alon, because I'm not entirely sure I believe it really, but it seems like the battlefield is a little bit different than Ash Greninja versus Sceptile, and I highly doubt that that particular orange water shuriken will take place in a different aspect. And I highly doubt that Ash would use Ash Greninja to use that cool power up, return it, and then use other Pokemon, and then eventually send out Ash Greninja again. So I don't know. There seems to be inconsistencies the way that the league is being handled if Ash doesn't win. But as I said, I just don't think they can properly conclude Ash winning the Kalos League or whatever. I mean, I guess it's possible that Ash can fail the Elite Four. Like, if he goes up against one Elite Four, he loses. I mean, maybe he'll beat one Pokemon, but he ultimately loses or whatever. Maybe then Ash will be like, well, I can't do anything right now because I failed, so I have no choice but to move on forward and go on to the next region. I personally don't think that makes any sense, because if it's anything like the games in regards to an anime adaptation, I think once you beat a particular regional league conference, like Ash would hypothetically beat the Kalos League, I feel like Ash would have an infinite amount of times to battle against the Elite Four. I don't think it makes any sense that you only get one shot at battling the Elite Four and the champion if you beat the league, because I just don't think it would be quite fair that, oh, well, you didn't beat Drasna, you didn't beat Wilkstrom, Malva crushed you, Siebold mopped the floor with you, you know, guess what? You have to go and battle the Kalos League again. If that's the case, then fine. Maybe Ash can do that. Maybe he loses, can't re-challenge the Elite Four, so he has no choice but to move on to Pallet Town, and move on to the Alola region or whatever. I just don't know. So I just hope that I'm just being over paranoid that we will get proper Ash focus in the league, but with the titles, it just doesn't seem like that to me, especially with no break between Sawyer and Tierno, Ash versus Sawyer. But I'm going to call it for right now that this is just a tentative, pre-thought, maybe an over paranoid opinion right at this particular moment in time. But I'm not exactly fully looking forward to the league that I would have liked to, because as I've said before, this should have been an Ash league, because even if it wasn't the point of Ash gathering all the badges and getting into a league where a lot of the focus is on him, it still shouldn't have been about Sawyer and Alon. But I'm going to call it for right now, and I'm going to end this particular video right now. So the next video that I will discuss, of course, the next episode, of course, will be my review in regards to the first episode of the Callus League. Maybe that episode will blow my mind, and maybe it'll prove me wrong. I guess we'll have to wait and see, or maybe I'll be salty in regards to the content as Ash Greninja sweeps the Altaria trainer, and and stuff of that nature. In just a little bit, just before the episode airs in a couple of days, Malva and Diantha will be in the episode. Trevor might be having an Aerodactyl in the episode, so it's very there's at least some interest in regards to the Callus League, so I'm not saying it's all bad. So anyway, I think that's all I'm going to say. I don't know about any other videos after that, outside of my anime review for the next episode. After that, of course, we have Tierno versus Sawyer, and then, of course, we have a break for the Hoopa movie airing on TV right before the Magearna movie, Volcanion movie, and then, of course, I think we'll jump right back into the Callus League, and I'm sure at some point we'll have another break to make up for the Hoopa movie. So anyway, thank you for watching. I'm Dustin Benzel, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.